Hi, everybody. It's Jessica Stone at Stansberry Research, and I'm here with Stansberry Newswire's Scott Garliss. And Scott, we've just been watching what Fed Chair Jerome Powell had to say in the monthly press conference. We got some guidance from the FOMC, and the main gist of this seems to be that he is saying that the path of the economy really depends on everything that this country does to keep the virus in check.
The path of the economy is going to depend to a very high extent on the course of the virus and on the measures that we take to keep it in check.
Is he basically saying we opened up too quickly?
I don't think Powell's necessarily saying we reopened too quickly. What he is noticing is they're looking at high frequency data, and high frequency data is showing that as coronavirus resurgence has taken place in a number of states around the country, that people are getting scared once more. They're worried about shutdowns coming once again. They're worried about interacting, and they're worried about being shoulder to shoulder with people. So they're pulling back from that stuff. As a result, spending patterns are dropping off a bit.
You know, all along he's had a message for Congress. He's been saying that monetary policy, which is what the Federal Reserve does, is not going to be enough, that Congress has to act. And this time he really put a strong red line under it. He said the Fed can't get us out of this situation. Congress has to act. And he was even more specific. He said loans aren't as attractive as grants. Take a listen.
Lending is a particular tool, and we're using it very aggressively, but fiscal policy is essential here. And I would say, again, Congress's action early in the pandemic, historically large by any standard around the world, and certainly by U.S. standards, it's really helping now.
So, Scott, he seems to be telling members of Congress with respect to the stimulus, hey, guys, you guys are on the right side of history already. Keep it going. We need you to continue to stimulate the economy with a stimulus package.
Central bank policy works in coordination with government policy. That's when we're going to have the maximum economic effect. And that's what they want to see, instead of just leaving it all in the lap of the central bank to do whatever needs to be done.
Scott, one of the things we've been hearing going into this press conference is that there's a concern about inflation out there, meaning prices would go up on our basic goods and services when we don't have as much money to pay for them. But it sort of feels like Fed Chair Powell shot that down.
We see core inflation dropping to 1%. And I do think for quite some time we're going to be struggling against disinflationary pressures rather than against inflationary pressures.
So, Scott, first, define the difference between disinflation and inflationary pressures and why that matters to those of us who buy groceries and gas.
Sure. So what we're looking at in terms of what Powell's talking about with inflation and disinflation, if you're seeing inflation, basically you're talking about prices going up. So your dollars are buying less day after day. And disinflation, prices are going lower. You're not seeing prices take off on you. So your dollars at least can remain stable. Essentially, they should be able to buy more. So where we really want to look at that, though, is from a policy perspective. When you're seeing inflation, that means the Fed needs to tighten policy, or to make it simpler, hike rates. But if you're seeing disinflation, they can ease policy. They don't have to hike rates. What we want right now, because of the situation the economy's in, we want easy money policies. And what he's telling us is easy money policies are here to stay. Now, you're not necessarily going to see this at, say, the grocery store, because you need food. So that demand is going to remain relatively static. Where you're going to see this are places like, say you want to buy an iPhone or an iPad, or go on vacation somewhere. There isn't going to be as much demand for those goods because they're not as necessary. So those prices are probably going to drop more.
Which actually exacerbates the wage gap, which is something that he feels very personally tied to trying to fight, but nonetheless admits that this is going to exacerbate that. I want to move now to the way that the media has covered this press conference, because you and I usually have a difference of opinion sometimes on sort of the take of the media on it. I'm going to read you a couple of headlines, and then I want to hear your take on how you felt Powell came across. The Financial Times, their headline, Fed warns virus resurgence threatens economic recovery. The Wall Street Journal, Fed maintains stimulus commitment as economic outlook dims. We often talk about whether or not Powell needs to come across as a cheerleader or as a naysayer, and what his role is in sort of cheering on the markets and the economy. How do you think he came across, and do you think he was accurately covered?
I don't think Powell is accurately covered based on some of those headlines. I actually thought that Jay Powell came across as very confident and very upbeat compared to some of the other speeches I've watched him give, especially in the very beginning. His one tendency is to be very conservative. He does not want to paint an overly rosy picture and have people get too excited, because the last thing Powell wants to do is have people think, oh my gosh, this guy told us everything's great. Let's go spend like crazy, lever up, and then have something go wrong.
We've got to hope for the worst, hope for the best, and plan for the worst, I guess it goes.
He's trying to be as conservative as possible, because that way, if things turn out better, individuals and businesses are positioned so for things to be worse, so that way they're better off in the long run.
And so that's something we need to remember when we're reading about what the Federal Reserve is doing, is that they're always looking at what is the worst that can happen and being ready for that. That is the prism that they are looking through. All right, Scott Garliss, thank you for that insight and watching that press conference. One day we're going to see you asking those questions. Thanks so much for your time. And if you want to see more writing from Stansberry Newswire, hover on your screen now and you can find a subscribe icon to click on to connect you there. Please also follow us on YouTube, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.